So I am here with Tim and Jo from the Red Cross, and Swim with the Hero is all about motivating young people. Red Cross clearly has humanitarian values. Tell me about how you both, what inspired you to get involved?
Do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Well, I've come back from volunteering overseas, and I was looking for a way to volunteer in the community, and I had learned a lot about disaster preparedness while I was over there, and felt that I'd get involved in the emergency services, but I felt that more the personal support side of things, and I found that that's Red Cross's role during an emergency, and it all started from there.
Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah,
you were in Vanuatu, weren't you?
I was.
So talk about severe weather and
Absolutely.
exposure to those events. Unbelievable.
Playing with the cyclone tracking map and everything. I've got experience with that.
And isn't it incredible how the community itself has a way of coping and adapting, and how they know, they just need support, but they know what to do.
Exactly. We learned a lot more about the foundations of that in the Pacific. I mean, we know about disaster preparedness in Australia in context, but we learned just as much there and just had to sort of, put it together with some of the more technologically advanced ideas from Australia.
Right.
So.
Oh, look, that's very cool. Tim, you work at Red Cross,
Yep.
and obviously Jo is one of your star volunteers.
Yes.
What do you guys look for, especially with young people? What are some of the cool things that people can do?
Sure. I think now it's less about recruiting the mass numbers.
Yes.
It's more about how can we get people that have the skill sets or the energy to match the jobs that we need to fill.
Right.
And so young people have some really key skill sets that we desperately need in the organisation. So, the obvious ones such as being electronically savvy, being able to use computers, because a lot of our processes now rely on the computers to be able to connect people during disasters. And so young people, the ideal volunteer is to sit behind a computer and take phone calls during an event that then connects the people that are looking for those people. We're also looking for people that have the skill sets to be able to communicate across generations. And so our young people, we find, are able to put out communication material that appeals to them, but it also appeals to our older generations. And so they're very tech savvy in that regard. And that's why we're developing roles, such as what Jo does as a volunteer trainer, that helps her attract more young people.
And that, I guess, is the key thing. What we're trying to do is morph Jo 20,000 times.
Absolutely.
Oh, my goodness. So how are we going to do that? How are you looking forward to kind of using the Twitter, the Facebook, getting videos, having you be the example that your peers can follow?
Well, it's exciting because there's so many different ways. I think when people talk about emergency services volunteering, they get frightened and think of the SES and these physical demanding jobs, and it frightens them, whereas the Red Cross and other organisations provide many different ways for people to utilise all their different skills and help in the way that they can best do that. And so me being on the front line as a trainer allows me to get people out into the training, get them skilled up and get them excited about how they can best support Red Cross in their roles.
Fantastic. And, this whole notion of there's a chance, anyway, that the planet might be warming. And, part of that might be coping with heat wave. And the very vulnerable people whose physical reaction to heat needs kind of, all of that. How much do you think the community understands that, the link between climate change and some very important core community volunteering needs that we have in our communities?
There's a number of different things we could probably talk about there, from the emergency services down to other Red Cross services like telecross, where we have the vulnerable populations with the older generations who will live alone, for example, and we have services where people call those people once a day to make sure they're all right and make sure that if there is difficulties, we can start looking at it.
And we're going to talk to Ben about that in a minute, and Ben doing that when Sydney goes over 45 degrees over a couple of days in a row, and picture what they're predicting for Melbourne. It's like we are going to need to look after each other unlike ever before, and young people are good on that. Okay, well, listen, fantastic. We're so excited to have you involved, and we can't wait to see Jo out there. Woohoo!
Thanks so much.